Okay, everybody.
Okay, let's go.
Learn. Okay. Everybody go on mute. Everybody mute yourselves, please. Everybody mute yourselves, please. You know how to do that? You have to press. Good. Very good. Okay, good. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Kala kavod that you woke up early to come learn some Torah. And you're showing your Kodesh. And Baruch Hashem that you're right, Joanne? Everything okay?
Yes, I was going to tell you it is 10 o'clock. We've all been on the go since 6:37. I don't know about all of you.
Okay, so I'm saying is, even though it's 10 o'clock, but everybody's on Corona schedule. So it's not like you have to run to catch a train and 6 o'clock in the morning and get to work on time. Anyway, kol hakavod that you're coming to learn. That's a very, very good thing. Let's devote our learning to the spiritual sustenance of all the people in your life that you love. And just one second. I just want to share this. One more second. I want to share with you an important thought. Sorry, technology. Okay, now I'm with you completely. I want to share with you a thought that you're all very expert in. I'm just sharing it with you because I want you to share this with other people. We have a teaching in Kabbalah and Chassidus that in order to fix something, you need to fix it at its root. We all know that in medicine, for example, let's say a person keeps getting, stomach aches, and they keep taking antacid to make their stomach feel better. So clearly they're not getting to the root of the problem. If a person's getting stomach aches a lot, then there's a reason for it. And just taking a painkiller or something that will, ignore the pain or muffle the pain is not what's going to help. You have to figure out what is it that you're doing wrong that's causing the stomach ache. That's called getting to the root of the problem. We know that. We all know that. Same thing with psychology. If you figure out the root, somebody told me something very interesting that I hope will help you. One of my students is having a hard time with one of her teenagers. And this teenage boy doesn't get up for minyan. That's a very common ailment among teenagers. Teenagers need to sleep a lot. Why? Because they're growing a lot. Their bodies are changing immensely. And a person's body grows and changes when they're asleep. So teenagers are constantly changing and shifting and growing, and they'll stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning because it's fun, but then they're going to sleep until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is not fun. So one of the ladies was trying to deal with her son, doesn't want to get up for minyan. She's trying all these Band-Aids, put an alarm clock, wake him, shake him up, punish him, and reward him. All these are external. So she spoke to an elderly neighbor who said to her, "Is your son having a hard time with his father?" So the students of mine said, "How did you know?" So this elderly rabbi neighbor said, "Because that's really what it is. When teenage boys don't want to get up for minyan, it's not about only, it's not only about their hormones. It's also about their relationship with their father." So yeah, that was an interesting insight. That's called getting to the root of something. When you get to the root of something, then you can deal with it, then you can cure it, then you can help it. Okay? So I want to talk about, before we talk about Tehillim, before we get into our Tehillim, I want to talk about the root. Rivaya, you just got the link now, right? Yeah, just nod. No, okay, doesn't matter. Okay.
I'm sorry to do this, Rochel, but Rebecca is she's here with us and she's joined in. I can't really see where she is, but she's here. And she actually is in the Royal Free Hospital. She had her appendix removed yesterday. So just wanted to wish her a refuah shalema, and I'm glad that she got here with us, but I actually can't see where she is.
Rebecca Frankel?
Rebecca Frankel, yeah. Oh, there she is. I can see her. So I just wanted to...
Wow. Shlema Rebecca. Hachlama mehera. That means
Amen.
complete healing and feel better quickly. Feel better quickly. Bezrat Hashem. Kol hakavod. All the learning that we're doing today, Torah learning is so powerful. I hope we'll get to it today, the concept of it. Anyway, so the point I want to make, though, is getting to roots of things, getting to the root of something is the way that a person can really make a fundamental change. Let's say, for example,
can I ask you, sometimes it's really hard to know what the root is.
Okay,
how do you find that out?
You're totally right, Deborah. You're totally correct. And that's what I want to talk about. Sometimes you can't find the root and you need someone to help you to figure out what is the root. And it's a very big, it's like a root canal. You have to really dig deeply to figure out what is it. And it's a huge topic, it's really a huge topic. And again, I'm not in any way exhausting this topic because there's so many other things involved. For example, it's not just, let's say, this particular example that I gave of a teenage kid not wanting to get up for minyan or having a hard time. It's not just issues with the father, but there's a root there that has to be figured out. And so, sorry, I can't get my camera adjusted. It's just going to have to stay like this. So I want to talk about the roots of COVID, of the coronavirus, because that will help us a lot. The spiritual roots, and this is just my opinion, so I'm just going to share it with you. And I hope that you will share this with others. If you think about what the virus itself and the restrictions and the rules and the all of that, those are all the band-aids. Those are all the externals. Even though it seems like maybe the virus is the root and we all have to stay safe, etc. But there's something else that's going on here. And I want to share this with you based on a teaching of Rabbi Mendel Kessin, who is a very profound thinker. He's probably one of the world experts in the Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. And he, wow, Esther Azelia, this is like a treat for me. Major treat, one of my sweethearts. One of my kids just got on. I can't believe it. Is she still on? Where are you? Yes, you're there, Esther Azelia. Okay. It's good to see you, Mamala. Sorry I sent out the link very late. Whatever, that's just how it works. So the roots of this, again, based on what Rav Mendel Kessin has been teaching, and that is, and I've noticed this, what's been happening in the last, I don't know how many years, was in the last, I don't know how, and again, you historians could tell me, and since you're a group that's mostly from England, you can tell me if the same thing is happening in England. But if you look at what's happening in the two major population centers of Jews, Eretz Yisrael, number one and always, and also in America, on the East Coast of America, and you'll see the major conflicts that we're having. It could all be defined as, I won't call it sinas chinam, but I'll call it separation. I'll call it separations. What do we see? Just look at this whole COVID thing. You go out in the street, everybody has a mask on. The mask immediately is a mechitza. It's a separation. Okay, we need to put it on. They tell us it's the rules, whatever. but it's making a barrier between the person and the rest of the world. Right away, you have become a loner. And right away, you're also being suspicious of everybody else. They are wearing a mask, they're not wearing a mask, the mask is on their nose, the mask is not on the nose. We became really separate one from the other. I'm not talking only about the obvious. The obvious fact is that the obvious when, they're keeping us, like now in Eretz Yisrael, you're not allowed to go more than 1,000 meters from your house until they lift that. And that right away puts families, it separates families. You can't go to weddings, you know what happened yesterday. And there's all kinds of clashes and separations between Jews. And we know that that's coming, says Rabbi Kessin, that's coming from the fact that the Yetzer Hara, the whatever the power of evil that Hashem created in the world, it feels, and that has many names. It has the name the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, the Malach HaMaves. It knows that Mashiach is close, very, very close. And because it knows that Mashiach is very close, like any time that anyone is about to lose, it becomes desperate to stretch out its existence. It becomes desperate. Like the Ramchal says, it's like when two people are two boxers are fighting each other. And if one of them feels that they're losing, they all of a sudden get like a burst of adrenaline to try to fight back stronger. When the Yetzer Hara feels that it's about to die, because it is, Mashiach is almost here. All the tzaddikim are telling us that. And we see that, we know that when Mashiach comes, we're going to all have an upgrade in our minds. How do you know when Mashiach is going to be here? You're going to know because your mind will expand. That's how we're not going to need to, we're not going to need that, even though it's going to be on WhatsApp in 10 seconds, the whole world will find out. But you're not going to a Jew's not going to need that. A Jew who's Shomer Mitzvahs is going to have an instantaneous expansion of the mind. The tzaddikim in this generation have already experienced that. And the Lubavitch Rebbe, Zechat Tzaddik V'Kodesh L'Bracha, he said this line, 30 years ago? Because he had already, because tzaddikim, the more connected you are to Hashem, the more you feel, the earlier on you feel that expansion of the mind. And regular people like us are going to have all of a sudden clarity on certain, not on everything, but on certain things. That's how you're going to know Mashiach is going to be. You're just going to know. So the Yetzer Hara knows it's at the end. He's done. He's almost, Rabbi Kessin says, between 98 and 99% of the tikkun of the world has been completed. How is that? It doesn't look that way necessarily to us, but that's what he said. And so the Yetzer Hara is therefore going crazy, trying to make us be the worst that we could be. The worst that we could be, because when Jews are the worst, then the Yetzer Hara has a chance to survive, because it exists. The Yetzer Hara exists off of the energy that Jews provide it with. This is a whole teaching, but whatever, just trust me on this for a while. We provide the Yetzer Hara with energy when we do misdeeds. We actually enliven the Yetzer Hara. So it wants us to do misdeeds. And what is the biggest misdeed that a Jew could do? And that is not fulfilling V'ahavta l're'echa kamocha. That is the biggest misdeed, the biggest mistake that a Jew could do, is to be separated, to feel the lack of love and the lack of connection, one Jew to the next. That's the biggest mistake that we can make at the end of time. How do we know that? Because we know that the second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed because of Sinas Chinam. Now, Sinas Chinam is a very, very big topic, but the point is that the Yetzer Hara knows, the Satan knows, that if he can get Jews to feel separate, then he can extend his existence. And that's exactly what the root of this whole coronavirus is, in my opinion. Because what does it do? The way that the world has chosen to deal with this is quarantine. Quarantine means you're not near anybody. You're separate. You're worried to have connections. You're worried to kiss and to hug and to play and to socialize and to eat together and to dance together. And we're worried about those things. That's called separation. And that's exactly what is going on now. That's the roots. Okay, so now listen. we're regular people. We're not big politicians. We're not people of power. But what can we do? How can we help in our little way? I'll tell you how. By measuring every machshava, dibur, and masa, every thought, speech, and action, by measuring it with the following measuring stick. Will this bring pirud, which means separation, separateness, or will this bring togetherness between two Jews? Will this make Jews connected, or will this make Jews separate? Even if what you're in speech, thought, and action, even if you're right, you know that we're all right. Whenever we make an argument for something, we're right. There's two sides to every story. The question is, number one, will this make Jews come together? When I say Jews, I mean just me and you, like you're talking to somebody. Will it make a barrier between you, or between that Jew and someone else, or between that you and someone else? Is it a barrier, or is it an opening of the curtain? That to me is going to be my barometer now. Be'ezrat Hashem, I hope I could do this. Be'ezrat Hashem, that's going to be my barometer right now. Be'ezrat Hashem, of making my decisions in machshava, dibur, and masa. Taldi, you just came on. I'm very proud of you, and I have to talk to you. You need to do me a favor later. One of my special students. And okay, you got to mute yourself, but you have to call me a little bit later. Okay, so and not just that, but what is this Corona thing doing? It's also making separations between ourselves and ourselves. How many of us have gotten lost in the she'imum, in this whole story? Meaning, your neshama. Where's your neshama? Is it there? Are you living a neshamadika life, or are you living a crazy, distracting life? So not only are we making separations between ourselves and other people by this whole quarantine and by this whole situation. And again, it came to you too. Thank you, Mira. So now, Baruch Shekivanti, I'm glad that two of us had that thought. I'm sure it came to everybody that, have we separated our reality from our reality, right? Because we know what's real. What's real is our neshama, Torah mitzvahs, Hashem. That's what's real. What's fake? What's fake are distractions. So how much, and we all need distractions, a little bit. We all need distractions. But how much of our life is a distraction, which is separating our reality from our reality, separating real reality from what we're going through during the day. So this is how I'm looking. I'm for a long time, I'm trying to analyze this. And the thing that happened last night, and for those, I don't even talk about it because it's too painful. What happened at this wedding in Givat Zev and what's happening in Brooklyn, it doesn't let me rest. Meaning, what is it? Like when people say, what does Hashem want from us? I think that if we look at the roots of what has happened as a result of this whole COVID thing, the Corona thing, we see that we can't necessarily make attachments now physically. There's still going to be, you have to wear a mask, and there's still going to be, I'm not going to talk about it, you can read it in the newspapers, go on the Israeli newspapers, you can read it. There's still going to be all the precautions, but the inner avoda has to be in order to stay healthy, spiritually healthy, and physically healthy. We have to minimize in our mind and our speech and our action anything that will create barriers between us and other Jews. And by the way, if this means that you have to have not looking at certain news sites, websites, whatever, newspapers, if that's what it means for you, then that's what you have to do. If you can look at a situation and really see both sides of it, and not judge, okay, then you can read the news. But if you right away find that you're going into judgmental, even in your mind, somebody who just got on has to mute themselves, please. Even if you're finding that you're going in your mind into a judgmental place, then you have to analyze, do I really need to know this information? I need to know this right now in order for my life to progress. So I wanted to share that with you. The Yetzer Hara, the Satan, the power of evil in this world is trying to make separations. As much as people will say we're doing this for your protection, look at the American election. I'm not I never was involved in politics until exactly like beautiful Sarah, like removing a chatzitza before you go into the mikveh. You have to take off. We have to see how many chatzitzas, how many layers of separation is there being forced upon us in a psychological way or in an emotional way. And if you see, so I'll tell you something that helps me a lot. For those of you who are blessed with children. So yesterday, I had to tell one of my students that she has to put on her mask. I just had to tell her that because that's just the situation. So especially when I'm teaching, I can't teach you person to person. Soon, Be'ezrat Hashem, I would love to teach you person to person here in Eretz Yisrael. But here, there's still ways to teach outside. So I had to tell one of the girls, it was outside, but it was in a closed environment. So I had to tell her to pull up your mask. And she right away said, oh yeah, you're right. People forget. So then I wanted to make sure that I wasn't annoyed with her. So I right away, I hope my granddaughter won't be annoyed with me, but I right away made believe that she was my granddaughter. I have one granddaughter, Ken Yerbu, a teenager. So I right away said, okay, that's my Ahuvala. I'm not going to be annoyed with her because if it was really my granddaughter, I would still love her. I would say like, put up your mask, but I wouldn't like start judging or start being, criticism or separating or suspicious. No, because with your own kids, you don't do that. Or with your grandchildren. Maybe with your kids, you still do a little bit because kids and parents are having a hard time in this generation. But with grandchildren, once you have them, it's grand, it's fabulous. So, okay, that's what I wanted to share with you. Barometer is it going to bring connection between me or separation? And if it's separation, if it's a separation that cannot be avoided, then please ask Hashem, please, I want to love every Jew. Please, Hashem, help me to love and to treat respectfully every single Jew, to treat respectfully in behavior every single Jew. Okay, that's what I wanted to share with you. The root of the COVID is separation. The cure is coming together. Okay, now let's do a little bit of Tehillim. It's a very big thing what I just said. I don't stop thinking about it.
Rochel, can I just add something before you start on to the Tehillim? In Mirza Hashem, in 3 weeks from now, there is the Shabbat project, which we've been doing annually. And because nobody can be together, one of the projects that Mirza Hashem is going to be coming out and told around the world today is that we are going to be doing a Zoom around the world in 24-hour Chalamek. And the whole thought process was just bringing, Nashim Tzadkaniot, Jewish women together around the world, starting in New Zealand and going all the way around to Panama in it will be 26-hour time span. So in Mirza Hashem, we're going to be doing this all together very soon.
Wow. Amazing. Very, very amazing. Shkayach. Odelia, I'm just getting a lot of nachas looking at you. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm happy to see you, that's all. I'm happy that you put your face on. Okay. Sorry, one of my kids. It's okay. All right, let's learn a little bit of Tehillim. A very simple Tehillim. The one that you all know by heart. Some of you learned it with me already. Tehillim 23, Chaf Gimel, Mizmor David, Hashem Roi, Lo Echsa, the one that you say by Shalosh Shudas. Some people say this by every meal. I want to tell you why I want to tell you this Tehillim. Why I want to learn with you this Tehillim. In one of the classes that we learned this week, and I don't know which one, we learned this Perek Tehillim, and one of the girls afterwards made a comment, and she said that she's living in America someplace, and she doesn't have a lot of Jewish people around her, and this Tehillim, this Perek of Tehillim, the non-Jewish world has adopted as a popular one by them. And she said that she never learned a Perek of Tehillim, this Perek of Tehillim, really any Perek of Tehillim, but she didn't learn. But she didn't learn this particular Perek of Tehillim in a Jewish way. She's only learned it in a non-Jewish way. So she was so happy to learn it in a Jewish way. And that, to me, was a very, very powerful message. So I want to just learn with you a few of the Yesodot, a few of the fundamental ideas that we have in Chaf Gimel, Tehillim Chaf Gimel. You know it by heart. And 23, right? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, right? Hashem Roi, Mizmor David, Hashem, we could sing it. Hashem Roi Lo Echsar, right? Hashem is my my shepherd, and I'm not missing anything. So I want to talk over with you not just the words, because the meaning of the words you could read on your own, you could read it in English, you can whatever. When did David HaMelech write this? So if you read the English, if you read the words, it sounds like he wrote it when he was really in a great place. It says, Hashem, you lied me down, you're my shepherd, you're taking good care of me. You took me to grass, very lush, delicious grass. You took me to get a drink by really beautiful rivers and lakes. You calmed down my nefesh, nafshi yeshovev. You calmed me down, and you're leading me in the right way. And I'm so feeling comfortable. That's how it sounds when David HaMelech, if you just read the first 3 psukim. And the end, it sounds like it's a very tranquil setting, and that David HaMelech is trying to convey to us tranquility and peacefulness. So when did he actually make up this Tehillim and say it? When he was thirsty, parched, dehydrated, in the desert, in Midbar Yehuda, in a place where there was like near the Dead Sea, where there was he was in a cave someplace. He was on the run sadly from Shaul HaMelech, his precious father-in-law, who was running after him in a mistaken way. He was afraid of his life, and he was afraid that he wasn't, Hashem has to save him, but he was still very, very young. And and he fainted. He mamish fainted. He fainted from dehydration, from starvation, from exhaustion, from tension. He mamish fainted. And then he woke up, and he saw that Hashem had made an ace, and he was surrounded by water, and he was surrounded by some food, and he was shaded. When did he make up the words? Before he fainted, he said, Hashem, you're my shepherd. Whatever you're doing is good. And even though I'm thirsty, but I know that you're providing for me. And you've always provided for me, and you always will provide for me. And even though I feel like I'm about to faint, I still love you. And then he fainted. That's David HaMelech. And then when he woke up, Hashem shows him this beautiful, tranquil, whatever. Why am I telling us that? Because the pasuk I forgot, in Yeshaya, I think. I don't have the quote here, and it's going to take me too long to look it up. It says that at the end of time, Hashem will be amazed. Hashem will testify that even he, okay, this is all allegorical, because of course Hashem is Hayah Hovevi Yeh, always he's timeless, and there's no not knowing. But Hashem in the end of time, so to speak, will testify and say, I know how much emunah a person could have. And your emunah, the people at the end of time, your emunah blew me away, says Hashem. Hashem's going to say that. And he's going to tell the angels, and he's going to tell the tzaddikim that the emunah, the simple emunah at the end of time from Jews, what does it mean? And the Meforshim explain that Hashem's going to say to his malachim, he's going to say to them, I gave this one such a hard test. And you know what? Instead of crying and complaining, she's saying, Hashem, okay, if this is the test that you give me, this is clearly what I need to go through. And okay, I accept it and I love you. That's what Hashem is going to say to the angels. He's going to say, do you know the greatness of the Jewish people? That they are excusing me, says Hashem. Hashem says, I'm giving them difficulties. And it's true that it's for their benefit. But they're not only are they just saying, okay, Gamzu Latova, with like this blah expression, but they're saying, Hashem, I trust you, and I know that for some reason this is what I need to go through, and you love me. And I know that this is an expression of your love, Hashem. And Hashem is going to be blown away, so to speak. He's going to be impressed with us, with our emunah, just like David HaMelech. David HaMelech had that same thing when he said he was going to faint, and he mamish fainted. But before he fainted, he said, Hashem, I love you. And I know that you're taking good care of me. And then he fainted. That's us, my friends. We are those people. How many, I can go around, and so many of you I have personal connections to. And by the way, I owe one of you an answer in WhatsApp, and I can't find it. The one who asked me that question, please ask me again. from England, one of the Chevra from England. I can't find the WhatsApp, and I owe you a very long answer for something. So please forgive me and then resend. So every one of us is going through stuff, and we're saying like, okay, Hashem, this is what I need to go through, and it's okay, and thank you for it. Thank you, Hashem. That became like the hit song, right? Thank you, Hashem, right? What does that mean, thank you, Hashem? It doesn't just mean thank you, Hashem, for the beautiful apartment, and thank you, Hashem, for the beautiful Yerushalayim HaKodesh, and thank you, Hashem, for the beautiful Chevra, and thank you, Hashem, for your beautiful Torah. It's not just thank you, Hashem, for the blessings, but we say thank you, Hashem, for the tests, for the nisyonot, for the difficulty with this kid, and the difficulty with that kid, and the difficulty with this spouse, and difficulty with this finance. And we say thank you to Hashem for that. And Hashem is proud of us that we can do that. So that's what it means. That's one fundamental thought in the beginning of this parsha, in the beginning of this parak. Another fundamental thought is pasuk Dalet. Gam ki elach b'geit salmavet lo irara. Even though I'm walking in the valley of the shadow of death, I'm not going to be afraid of bad. Ki ata imadi, because you, Hashem, I feel you right next to me. I feel you right next to me. So I want to tell you something. I always like to tell stories about my families, and so my mother, she should rest in peace. She should be a good debate for all of us and all of Yisrael. So when my mother became a widow very young, my father passed away shockingly, just when they both retired, and they were my father went back to learn in Kollel. He was learning, and he was like ecstatic. He hadn't learned really properly since he was in high school, and now he was in his middle 60s, and he began to learn. And that's when I had my son. So my mother was babysitting. They were like in heaven. They both retired. They were so excited to now begin to live life. And then my father just passed away on it like this. Just, that's it. So my mother was only 64 years old. She was mamish at the, nowadays 64 is like 44, right? So she was young and vibrant, and so at a certain point I asked her, she was alone for 29 years until she passed at age 92. So I asked her at one point, if she was lonely in the house, because I couldn't come to visit as often, and she couldn't come to visit me as often. And so I asked her once if she's lonely, and she said no. Like, she looked at me like I was crazy, like, no. I said, what do you mean? She said, I feel Daddy's presence, and Hashem is with me. And my mother wasn't a fancy Rebbetzin, and she wasn't a special, she was special. She wasn't like a teacher. She was a regular, good, salt of the earth Jew with a strong emunah. And she looked at me like, what kind of, my Rebbetzin daughter asks me that question, like, am I lonely? No, Hashem is with me. Like, no. She said this pasuk, and she said it in the most simplest way. And she said on a certain level, like, when she was busy with my father and with the family, and she was busy, she didn't have so much time for Hashem. But now she has plenty of time for Hashem. So she's with Hashem. And that was when she was in her younger years. And then in her older years, one time she was sitting and looking, she was on the porch here in Eretz Yisrael. She, Baruch Hashem, was zocha to live her last 8 years here in Eretz Yisrael. And she was once sitting on the porch just looking. Or maybe she was sitting in the front yard and just looking. So I said to Mommy, what are you looking at? So she looked at me like, what do you mean, what am I looking at? She said, I'm looking at the light. That's what she said. Now she was already in her, like, she had already had a stroke, and she wasn't so 100% in her mind, but she really was. She was like in a whole different, and she said, look, she looked at me like, what, you don't see it? I'm looking at the light. She didn't just mean the sunlight. She meant she was looking at Hashem. She's looking at the illumination of Hashem. That's called Ki'ata Imadi. And by the way, Ruthie and all the Chevra from who were on the Shir before, I'm saying that story in addition, because whenever you get on, I want to give you a Chiddush. So I want to, when you, as a second time listening to the Shir, I want to say something. Okay, now what does this part mean? Lo irara, gam ki elach, even though I'm walking in this scary place, a scary place, I'm not going to be afraid of bad. Lo irara. It doesn't say I'm not going to be afraid. This is a very fundamental teaching. We all have to know that it's okay to be afraid. It's normal to be afraid. we're all now afraid. Hashem is giving us this test right now of, as we said before, fear and suspicion and, oh my gosh, I'm in seventh heaven. Another of my kids just got a chaya. Okay, I'm sending you my love. My chaya just got on. I can't believe this. Thank you, Rebecca, for telling us this, that you're listening from the hospital. And 1 second, I didn't see the end of that message. When was that second? Okay, so this is super relevant to you. It's super relevant to me too, to everybody. We should all, none of us should go into the hospital. But what does it mean, lo irara? It doesn't mean you shouldn't be afraid. It doesn't, David HaMelech doesn't say, I'm in Chaf Gimel Chaya. It doesn't say, I won't be afraid. David HaMelech doesn't say that, because remember that David HaMelech in Tehillim is the most raw. He gives us his raw emotions. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. When he's upset, he screams. Look at Peiches. Look at Perik Peiches. He's screaming and yelling at Hashem. How is this? Okay, you don't have to put the video on because you're in PJs. I know she's in America now. Sorry, I had to say this. 5:30 in the morning. Hola kavod. So, David doesn't sugarcoat anything. If he's upset, look at Perik Yud Gimel. Look at Perik Yud Gimel. Hashem, Ad Masai, how long are you going to leave me? How long since you abandoned me? Right? Keli, Chaf, what's that? Lamed, Chaf, I forgot. Chaf, no, Chaf Gimel, Chaf Daled, Chaf Beis, Keli, Lama, 22. How come you abandoned me? God, where are you? Like David HaMelech he doesn't hide from us. He doesn't make believe he's a tzaddik. Of course he was, but he shares with us every one of his worries and fears and anxieties. David HaMelech had also anxiety. It says in Perek that he was once so nervous that he was dripping sweat a whole night, that his bed was drenched with sweat because he was so nervous. And then in Perek Gimel, he says he was nervous. And David HaMelech is sharing with us. He's sharing with us all of his emotions. It took him 52 years to write Sefer Tehillim. And the 52 years went through. And listen, could you imagine if you wrote down every emotional experience that happened to you in 52 years? Because remember, he only lived till age 70, and he began writing Tehillim at age 18. So that was basically his whole, his whole life. Could you imagine if we would, if we would remember? We don't write a journal. We don't have a 52-year-old journal. Most people don't. But whatever it is, David HaMelech goes through the gamut of all of his emotions with us. So here he's lo ira. He doesn't say lo ira because he was afraid. He says, I'm not going to be afraid of bad. What does that mean? So this is what Reb Tzadok explains. He explains that our first instinctual reaction to something is a reflex. And we're not responsible for that. In other words, let's say right now, somebody in the back of your room, wherever you are, somebody all of a sudden smashes a plate right next to you, but in back of you. So you're going to jump. Your instinct is to jump, right? To feel like frightened or scared or shocked. You lose your composure. That's your instinct. And then you look and you see what happened. You say, oh, it was just somebody broke a plate or whatever it was. That's right. It was said by Esther Malcolm, but it was written by David HaMelech. The second reaction is what counts. The first reaction that a person has is really more reflex. It's a reflex, and we're not responsible for that.
You so what's it?
It's the second reaction. Was that a question, or you just need to mute? It's
How
the
much have
second.
you lost since you have been ill?
4 pounds.
Well, that's nothing. It's nothing.
Somebody has to mute herself. So David HaMelech says, lo irara. I'm not going to be afraid of bad. In other words, I'm not going to not be afraid. It's scary. He says he's walking in a place of death. And remember that David HaMelech, when he wrote this, he was actually running away for his life. So he says, it's not that I'm not afraid, but I'm not afraid that what's happening to me is inherently bad. Even though I might not understand why it's happening to me, but I'm not afraid that it's bad. I might be afraid because I'm a human being and it's uncomfortable. But on my mind, my emotions or my reflex emotions might have like kicked in, and I got scared. I got shocked. I got, discombobulated. Is that a word that people in England know? But no, but upon reflection and upon thinking and upon my second, like when I can catch myself, I'm going to realize that it's not bad. What happens to me isn't bad. It's part of a plan. It's not bad. Nothing bad comes from Hashem. Nothing bad comes from Hashem. So David Melech is mechazik. Now he's strengthening us. Now, I want to tell you that in other places in Tehillim, he says he's afraid. But here, when he's explaining to us, and the other places in Tehillim, when he says he's afraid, the Mefarshim explain something very remarkable about David HaMelech. And we have the same thing with Yaakov Avinu, and we have the same thing with Moshe Rabbeinu. They weren't afraid, like, I'm afraid you're going to beat me up, because everything's Hashem. Ein od milvado. But they were afraid that their mistakes might cause a barrier between them and Hashem. I'm not going to even say they're Averis, because their Averis are like our super mitzvahs. But Yaakov Avinu says, when he, even though Hashem promised him, he's on the way to love and to get married, and Hashem promised him, you're the link in the creation of the Jewish people. Hashem promised him. And yet he was afraid that when he dealt with Esav, he was afraid that maybe one of his mistakes, one of his averas, one of his shortcomings that he thought was a shortcoming would make a barrier between him and his destiny. So here David HaMelech is coming from a different place. He's in a scary, bad place, and he's saying, I'm not worrying that this is bad. Somehow this is good, and we see that Hashem made it nice, and he made it good for him. The next concept, again, just concepts here. Shivtecha mishantecha, it's the same idea. Your patching, your stick that hits me, and the stick that supports me, they both comfort me. So I have to tell a different story, right? Because I told the story about my father on Monday night, about my father and my brothers. I have to tell a different story, which I will. My grandfather, Rochel Silber, was, he died, he was 104. And he smoked probably for 84 of those years. But he was a real European. And I was about 20 when he passed away. And my grandfather, at a certain age, he decided to walk with a walking stick, with a cane. And when my father asked him, why do you need that? You don't need that. My grandfather was a very, very strong, he was a European, he was from Europe, and he had gone through a lot. And so he didn't need a cane. I think about age 80, he decided that he's going to walk with a cane. And my father asked him, like, why? And he said, it's not nice. I'm an old man already. I have to look dignified. I have to walk with a cane. Dignified, older people walk with a cane. So he decided to take a cane, but he never used it. So I remember I used to look at him, how he would hold the cane as if it was like annoying. It was like getting in his way. It wasn't like he was leaning on it to walk. It was an annoyance to him, but he felt that was a dignified way to walk. And in my shul, where I grew up, it was the biggest compliment. My grandfather's name was Meir, and they called him Meyer. If Reb Meyer would give you a patch with his cane, that was like Rav Avadia giving you a slap in the face. That was considered like the biggest compliment, because my grandfather, everybody knew that he was tough and strong. And if he would take his stick and he would give you a clock with it, they considered that, men are different than women. Women would be like devastated, but men are tough with each other. And so that was considered a very big compliment. So that's called shivtecha. My stick is comforting. Why was it considered a compliment? Because it means that, I'm paying attention to you. I'm not ignoring you. You're in my consciousness. So David HaMelech is saying, when you patch me, or when I'm leaning on you, Hashem, both of these things are comforting to me. Why? Because I value the relationship. It's not about the behavior that you're acting towards me. It's about the relationship that we're having. Right now, we're in an argument. Let's just say that's called shivtecha. Your rod, your stick that's hitting me. That's called that if two people are in a relationship and they're in an argument. And right now, mishantecha is when we're loving to each other. Both of these are part of a healthy relationship. even arguments, as long as, like we said in the beginning, this whole COVID thing is about making period, about making separations. And our machshava, dibur, and masa, our everything should be about making connections between each other, not making separations. So even if you have to have an argument with somebody, you know that arguments can sometimes be the glue that keeps relationships together. First of all, there's clarity. When you're able to argue in a respectful way, there's all of a sudden clarity, like, oh, that's what you thought? I had no idea that you thought that way. So there's a certain level of clarity. There's a certain level of communication. It feels, for some people, especially for people who have a lot of air in them, it feels such a relief to be able to just tell out, give over what you're thinking. And then it's, oh, that's it, then it's gone. You don't need it in. You don't even have to resolve it because you just told it over and then everything's fine. That's called shiftecha. Mishantecha is when Hashem is supporting us. Both of these are comforting because we're in relationship with Hashem, because we're feeling Hashem. Now, again, every one of these concepts, now you have to forgive me for saying them so quickly. Each one of these concepts is a major meditation. And that's why we have the custom to sing this on Shabbos, because Shabbos we have more time. Shabbos we're supposed to be sitting with Hashem. We're not supposed to be so busy on Shabbos that we don't have enough time for Hashem. We have to take time on Shabbos to sit quietly with Hashem, just me and Hashem, just you and Hashem, and talk about this. So when do we say this? So I'll tell you that interesting things by the Chassidim. They say this parak of Tehillim, they don't say it they don't wait to say it 3 times. I love your comments, Mira. It doesn't, by the Chassidim, they don't wait to say this parak Tehillim 3 times at Shalosh Shudas. By every one of the meals, they say this parak of Tehillim. Most people say that Shalosh Shudas, they sing it 3 times. But really, it's about, this thought is a thought that we should try to feel on Shabbos itself, when we have quiet time with Hashem. Okay, the next idea that I want to share with you is the idea that our enemies should see that we were right. Pasuk Hey, Taruch lefanei shulchan neged tzorai. Dishanta v'shem en roshi kosi revaya. David HaMelech asks this several times in Tehillim. I want my enemies to see, Hashem, how much you love me and how much I'm right and they're wrong. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean like, I want everybody to see that I'm right because I want to be popular, because I want to be whatever? No, of course not. David HaMelech is saying like this. In the end, everybody has to do tshuva. All the bad in the world has to be transformed into good. Only Amalek cannot be transformed. Only Amalek cannot be transformed. But everybody else in the world has to have a certain level of transformation. How right now, how did Christianity survive for thousands of years? By saying, look at the Jews, they lost their specialness, they lost their chosenness, they're in exile, they're downtrodden. The Christians made sure to trod on us. The Christians made sure, the Christianity made sure to persecute and to hurt and to harm and to kill and to maim and to do everything to hurt us. Why? Because it fit into their theology that the Jewish people lost the gift of being the chosen people. And the Christians wanted to say that they are the chosen people now. And that way, because we were so downtrodden, we were such an exile, the enemies grew and they prospered. And then what happened when Hashem gave us back Eretz Yisrael and when we made the land prosper, right? So it was a big thorn in their sides theologically, especially to the Catholics, who are the really religious ones. It was a big thorn because we were not supposed to return to Israel, and here we are. And we were not supposed to be successful here, and here we are. We were not supposed to be thriving, and Torah wasn't supposed to be, existing, and here we are, Baruch Hashem. So all our enemies have to see. Now, this is talking about the physical human enemies. They all have to see that the Jewish people are vindicated. That's number one. Number two, our internal enemy, our biggest enemy is our Yetzer Hara. And the Yetzer Hara is the part of you that says, you're stupid, you're not fixable, you're drawn towards the worst things in the world. That's your Yetzer Hara. Your Yetzer Tov is trying to whisper to you, no, you're good. And you don't need all this stuff that you think you need. And you're inherently a neshama. That's what the Yetzer Tov is trying to whisper to you. And the Yetzer Hara is much louder. And we're used to listening to the Yetzer Hara, sadly. So David HaMelech, whenever he talks about any of his enemies, he talks about, I want my own mind, the negativity in my own mind, to be finally quieted down and to see that the real me is holy and beautiful and generous and trusting Hashem and loving other people. That's the real me. The fake me, which is worried, is, what we are, the negative of us, but the real us is perfect and holy. That's called, I want you to set a table before my enemy, and I want you to, because my cup runs over with good. So see the Revaya. Revaya is on, here we have Revaya on the screen. Kosi Revaya means my blessings are overflowing my cup. Like, when you pour out the Coke, the Coke and the fizz goes over, that's our blessings. So whenever you see that, you have to say Kosi Revaya, my blessings flow over, even though, people who are not paying attention can say, my cup is half full, not overflowing. But David HaMelech is saying to us, don't go to that place of half full, half empty. You can go to another place called my cup is overflowing. It's not just it's half full. It's flowing over with blessings. That's what I want my Yetzer Tov to win out over my Yetzer Hara. And now I have to run, but I'm going to just the last pasuk. Ach tov v'chesed yidafuni kol yemei chayai. It's very, very, I want it to be that only goodness and kindness should run after me. It's true that it's hard to internalize these things, but this is truth and everything else is false. Now, false is much louder than truth, and false is we're more used to false than truth. So when it's hard to internalize this, and everything else is saying otherwise, that's what Tehillim is all about. That's what learning emes is all about. That's what reviewing the proper hashkafa is all about. And it's hard, of course. Till Mashiach comes, nothing is clear. Okay, that was an answer to you, Chaim. Okay, now I want only goodness and kindness to run after me all the days of my life. I want to be in the Beis Hamikdash forever and ever. Now, of course, the Beis Hamikdash hadn't been V'shavti b'Beit Hashem. The Beis Hamikdash hadn't been built yet. David HaMelech says, I want to be in that place, in my mind, of perfect closeness to Hashem forever. Perfect closeness to Hashem forever. I want to be there forever. That's what's going to be when Mashiach comes. Right now, we can't imagine that, but a place of perfect, feeling perfect. That's what's going to be when Mashiach comes. And right now, because we're still in the world of Olam Hazeh, and in Olam Hazeh, this is also an answer to you, Chaya. In Olam Hazeh means this world. And what is it in this world? People try to say like, this is, they try to point to things. This, in this world, I want things to be the way it is. Things appear to be one way in Olam Haba, but in Olam Hazeh, the challenge of Olam Hazeh is that people are saying, and people are living with a certain mindset of, this is how it has to be, this is how it is, this is what I'm dealing with, this, everything is in the physical world, or this. But Olam Haba, or the world of the Beis Hamikdash, isn't about trying to impress and trying to any of that. Olam Haba and the Beis Hamikdash is about being in a place of reality. And that's what David HaMelech is saying. I want to be in a place of reality my whole life. What does it mean, ach tov v'chesed yirדפוני? To be chased by goodness and kindness, to be chased by it. So I told one story on Monday night about Rabbi Levine, now I'll tell you a different story. It's the same story that's repeated a lot, and there's, and many of you have actually had this story happen to you. You have a day where the phone is ringing off the hook. You keep getting phone calls. This one needs you, that one needs you, this one has a question, that one, you forgot that you have to do this for somebody, and then you have to pick up something, drop off something. You have those days where all of a sudden, like, there's not a second. So David HaMelech is saying that's good. That's the best day to have. Why? Because you're going to be getting days where the phone's going to be ringing off the hook for bad things, for sad things, for scary things, for anxious things. This one fell, this one needs to, come back to school, get your kid, and, whatever. You all know, everybody in their life and their age gets those days where they're being pursued by the collection agency, by bills, by too much, I have to go into my office and do all the boring things I don't want to do. You're pursued by a lot of things in your life. So David HaMelech says, if you're going to be pursued already, then be pursued by mitzvahs. So when the phone is ringing off the hook, could you please bake challah for this person? Could you please organize this Shabbaton? Could you please visit this? Call her. She's waiting for you to call her. Say Tehillim for this person. On the WhatsApp now, you get Tehillims every 10 seconds. This one needs, that one needs, and it's true. So sometimes you feel like, I need a break. So what is Hashem doing to you? Hashem is doing to you that, Judy, I miss seeing your kitchen. I just miss your kitchen. I love looking at your kitchen. Hashem is saying you're going to be pursued by something. Look who's there. See, I get so right away. Hi, Tehillim, Amala. We're learning Tehillim. We're learning your book. Yeah. And that's probably why your mommy gave you that name, because she learned Tehillim in high school, right? And she made a connection to Tehillim, so she gave you that name. Okay, so you're going to be be pursued by mitzvahs. Let it be that when things are going crazy in your life, but you see that they're good. You see that, that Hashem is making it, that you're busy with good things. When that happens, a person has to say this pasuk. Thank you, Hashem, that's running after me good things. Things that make a connection between me and you, Hashem. Things that make a connection between me and the Jewish people. Things that make a connection between me and myself. That's called ach tov v'chesed yirדפוני. We're being pursued anyway. So at least be pursued. David HaMelech says at least let it be that I'm pursued by good things. Ach tov v'chesed is like v'samachta b'chagecha v'hayita ach sameach. Remember, we just came out of Sukkot. The word ach means only. We have to take the simcha of Sukkot. The whole year it has to schlep us out. So I just saw today, one of the Mekubalim wrote that, and I didn't know this, that just like we have the last days of Elul, from Chai Elul, from the 18th of Elul till Rosh Hashanah, there's 12 days. And those 12 days represent the 12 months of the year. The last 12 days of the year represent the 12 months, the past 12 months of the year. And every day between the 18th of Elul, which we finished already, 18th of Elul, you could fix last year's Tishrei. 19th of Elul, you fix last year's Cheshvan, etc. So someone wrote in the name of one of the big Mekubalim that same thing happens after Sukkot. The 12 days after Sukkot represent also the 12 upcoming year, the 12 months of the upcoming year. So every day of the 12 days after Sukkot, which we're in the middle of now, if we can hold on, be positive, you're learning Torah. It's an amazing thing that you come to learn Torah. Each one of you in the different time zones, we have a few different continents here. If you can hold on for these 12 days, it fixes our upcoming year. So, ach tov v'chesed yirדפוני, and v'hayita ach sameach, be'ezrat Hashem. And 21, Chaya just said somebody is 21 years old, right? Today somebody is 20, Chaim's birthday is 21 Elul, okay? So there you go. Okay, Chevra, I'm a little bit
amazing. Amazing.